Hey, what's up? It's been a long time since I've put out a video. I had to move, a new setup. Currently it's in process, but couldn't wait to put out another video. So we're gonna do it right now. We're gonna look at ramps in Revit. So right up here in the architecture tab above the circulation panel, you'll see the ramp tool. This ramp tool has some features built into it that align to building code. Taking a look at it, a couple things I want you to notice. Right off the bat, 5-foot width, that's great for two-way traffic. If we go up to edit type, we'll see that there's a max incline length here. Building code wise that I'm familiar with IBC, International Building Code, there's a height at 30 inches before you need a landing, so just keep that in mind. Max slope can be as aggressive as a 12, which I'm going to change this one to. But you're going to want to look up the code on that for yourself to just see what's being applied. And so I'm going to just go ahead and say okay on this. And now when I do the run, I just want you to see that when I start the ramp, floor 1 to floor 2 is going to be where I'm climbing. That's 10 feet right now by default in this Revit template. And when I go to make this, it's going to stop me at the 30 feet of inclined ramp. Once again, that kind of relates to the climbing distance, how much you'd be traversing, how much you'd be traversing where you would maybe need a break. So that's why there's these landing requirements. Also going down, we don't want to pick up too much speed before reaching our descent of 10 feet. So there are these landings to kind of break up speed, provide resting areas. And the 5-foot width is also good for a turning radius. So I know I mentioned two-way path of travel, 5 feet is standard as a minimum, but then also as a turning radius. So good width, I wouldn't go much smaller than that. And that's why we see that out of the box here in Revit. So if I go and look in on this in 3D, you can kind of see what I've made here, just kind of this long traversing ramp. All right, let's get into a couple other ones that don't rely on the code so much. These other types of ramps in Revit here might be more of just like a secondary way or a primary way, and maybe there's a ramp nearby that actually meets code for egress or for ADA accessibility, but maybe in your design you have something else that's a feature architecturally. So another way to make a ramp is a floor. And so with our floor, there's two ways to do it. I'll show you both. So I'm going to go and make one right like this and check that off. And I'm going to go and make one more floor as well. We'll just copy this one over and put it right there. So the first one here, I'm going to do a modify sub elements. Let's go to 3D for that. So with modify sub elements, I'm going to click on modify sub elements, and we're going to pick this point and we can go and climb it up. And let's say I want it to be 10 feet. That'll get me to my second floor as well. This clearly is pretty aggressive for a slope. Hit enter on that and escape. But you can see that we've made this traversing ramp. All right, so that's kind of cool. And if we go into this, we can edit the boundary. Now, if I change this where this point's located, it's going to kind of mess things up. But I believe I could throw a hole in that and we'll be fine. However, you see that this definitely influences kind of how this slope is then applied. So if we edit this sub element of this point, we can make that a little bit less aggressive, maybe incorporate this a little bit more, enter, escape, and we can influence this a little bit more, right? So it's possible, but it kind of distorts it once you change that. And then this one here, we can add if we go to edit boundary, we can add a slope arrow. And so this can be straight across or, even on just like kind of an angle if you'd like. Let's just do like a 65. And with that, I can define in the arrow's properties when it's selected the height of the head. And we could change that to floor 2. We could say the height at the tail is going to be floor 1. And we can apply, we can even offset. And then now we have our angle of the plane. And it is tilting in that direction that the arrow is at as well. And let's see, just for an experiment, if we throw a hole in this as well, it doesn't really get distorted like this one did with the modify sub elements. So just a little experiment there for you. Okay, so we have two different types of ramps out of floor. Another one, which you probably won't use, but who knows, it might be nice to just see it. Let's go and make a wall, and let's make this wall just generic. And we'll make it from floor 1 to floor 2. Why is that saying 2 feet? Let's go from the foundation. Yeah, okay. All right, so now with this wall, sorry about that. Let's go to the cross section, and this is how you do a slope wall in Revit. And just do an angle. 0 is straight up, 90 would be like a floor, so let's do like an 88. So it's like a 2 degree slope, and whoa, holy cow, right? So this still goes up to level 2 because of its properties, but it's only going up at a 2 degree slope. I don't really know the benefit of doing something like this with a wall, but I guess the only instance would be if you had something like a tool or a command, or you wanted the wall, the ramp to, in this case, to host something, you might want to consider using a slanted wall as your ramp. So once again, up to you. You tell me in the comments how you would use this as a ramp, but it's just an option for you. All right. We could, I guess, since it is a wall, we could go to edit profile and we could do something a little crazy with it. Something like that. And then, you know, trim it up. Yeah, these splines, though, they don't like to trim nicely, so we'll have to snap it. And delete that. Whenever you use it, I haven't been able to get a spline to trim very nice, so I always have to end up like snapping it to the endpoints. But this should be, I guess, a way that you would want, or a reason that maybe you would want to use a wall. Although maybe a floor would get you there as well. But you can see we can do this kind of easily. I think you would just do a floor sketch with the slope, to be honest. But once again, you tell me. Then from here, let's go to another kind. We could do a massing and loft two shapes together. And then we can also do one with Rhino.Inside, the plugin Rhino.Inside. So let's get to that. Oh yeah, we have a roof is another way I've seen people kind of work around. So if we did a roof by like footprints, let's go to floor 1, roof, and we'll just make a roof real quick, just over here. And it's as easy as just defining a slope, right? You can define a slope. But once again, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, you're probably not going to use this for your ramp, but you might find that a roof gives you some more flexibility. Maybe that Revit out of the box doesn't want to let something else, right? Interact with your model the right way. So that's the reason you would want to maybe play around with floors, roofs, and walls as ramps. And then from here, let's see. Let's say you want to put a railing on this just real quick. If I do this like a railing sketch, pick the edge right here in 3D. Let's see what I'm doing. Right, so I pick that edge, and then I'm going to say, okay, this ramp lives right here, but I can pick a host of this, and now it applies it. Right, so this becomes, much more of like a workable ramp now, which is kind of cool. And let's do that component. So let's go to the massing and site. We could do an in-place mass and make a ramp. So we'll do that. Component would be different. We can make an in-place component too, but we'll do an in-place mass here. And you could just go and draw out on like one reference plane, one square, another reference plane, another square at a different height, just loft those two together. A lot of times, though, it's a little bit easier to draw some reference planes as targets in the floor plan first, which I didn't do yet, so I'm going to do that right now. We go to cancel this mask real quick. Architecture tab, reference plane. Can't click right now. There we go. Drop one in, drop another one in. Let's name these 1, 2, or south and north. Let's go to a south elevation. In that south elevation, let's just make sure that we're not using our crop box and turn that off. And now we'll go over to that massing and site tab. In place mass. We'll just call it ramp. Whoops. Called it Ramo instead of ramp. That's fine. And we'll set our reference plane, and we'll do it with reference plane 1. Say okay. Let's show it. There it is. And then let's draw out, that's basically our floor 1. We could draw down maybe the thickness of that ramp. Element is too small on screen. I disagree. Let's draw that again. And we could just set that dimension later, but for right now. And then let's do another one. So we'll set another reference plane. Plane 2. Okay. And we'll draw out maybe the top of this. And let's look at this in 3D. So we can kind of hover and see. We have these two, right, at different distances because they're on different reference planes. And then we can hit escape a couple times, pick on one, hold down control, pick on the other, create form, solid form, and it's going to loft those two forms together. And we should be able to manipulate that form after the fact with these little move arrows by selecting the edge. And we can grab this one too, right? We can just manipulate that down. We can manipulate that over. And now this is like slanting out. We could also do a void form through this. So we can do the same kind of thing. Before we finish the mass, we could go and draw a circle, let's just say on this plane. And then we can click on that and do a void form. And that should cut. And it's going to say, hey, do we want to do like a half sphere or a cylinder? Let's do the half sphere. That's cool. So now we have that, and then we can finish mass. And so that should cut into that mass. This kind of like cupped out shape. And we can even assign a material to this mass, or we could assign things to kind of wrap it. So if I want to assign something to wrap this mass, I would go to the massing and site tab. We could do a wall by face or a roof by face or a floor by face. So let's just do a roof by face. And create roof, and then it creates a roof on this. And we could do the same thing. We could do like walls on these sides and kind of just box it in with concrete or whatever. All right, so now we have another type of ramp. Okay, let's do Rhino.Inside. So I'm going to go to, it's a plugin. You can download Rhino and get like a 90 days, maybe 60-day trial, or you could buy it. It's actually relatively inexpensive compared to other software. I'm becoming a big fan of Rhino, currently learning a lot about it. And the plugin is in Revit. It works pretty great. So we would run the plugin, install it, open up Rhino. Once Rhino opens, these tools open up for you. Run Rhino. I'm just going to show you just real quick how to use the plugin. So once Rhino opens, let's just double click on perspective. And of course, the scroll and the orbit are different than in Revit. So you kind of have to get used to it. And then let's run Grasshopper. And you want to run like under the Revit tab, we can get an edge. We can reference an edge, so we can set multiple edges right now. So let's just say I wanted to like reference this edge and this edge in Revit. I can, and then I can say finish. And now that comes into Grasshopper, and you can see that previewing here in Rhino. And then with these, we can just go and bring them into a curve. So to use Grasshopper, you would just double click and type like what you want. All right, so somehow I like lost my Grasshopper window, and when I restarted it, I lost all the stuff I did. So let me just put that back on there for you. So I'm going to double click in, and I'm going to look for an edge. So I'm looking for an edge in Revit, and so this one is the one that's in the Revit tab. So I'm going to click on that one. And then let's just right click on that and say select multiple edges. And I think we did this one and this one. And then I just say finish. So that's where we left off. And then from there, there's my Grasshopper window. And then from here, what we want to do is see that here in Rhino. I double clicked into perspective to make it full screen. And let's do something cool with this. So I think we're gonna bake this into Rhino and do most of our modeling in Rhino. You could do it in Grasshopper, but that's algorithmic aided design, and that's gonna be a little more advanced. Probably not for this video. So since this is based on ramps, this is already kind of crazy for this. So with this, we want to bake that into Rhino, and we're looking to do that as a curve. So we're taking the data from Revit, where it's located on the Cartesian coordinate system, X, Y, Z, and just bringing that into Rhino as a curve, right click and say bake, which brings it into Rhino. And these are the layers that are currently in Rhino. If you made additional layers with different names, they would pop up. But when you first open Rhino, these are the ones that are by default. Let's just put on layer 1 and say okay. So if we minimize Grasshopper, now we see that these are the 2 lines that we can currently select. We can move, whatever. We can do that all in Rhino. And then what we can do, I think what would be easiest is if we just take one, hold down Alt and copy it over. And we just kind of move it down. And then let's play around with this thing a little bit. So we can scale it like this. And then let's rebuild. And when we rebuild it, Rhino has different geometries. Degree 1, degree 2, and degree 3 curves are all different kind of mathematical formulas that are... The geometry in Rhino is more pure than most geometries in most programs. What I'm saying is like mesh geometries are very common in most computer-aided design programs. However, Rhino geometry is more pure. It uses more of like, if you're familiar with graphics, raster images are like pixelated, right? And that's kind of what mesh geometry is, right? It's triangles and squares, 4-sided and 3-sided polygons. Vector geometry, like if you're familiar with like how Illustrator works or PDFs, right? Infinitely fine in resolution because it's the formula between point A and point B that creates the line rather than a collection of dots that are definitive. So when you zoom, it pixelates. So the idea here between Rhino geometry is that it's a mathematical formula, and these like degree 3 curves utilize that and leverage that much more. So they're like infinitely smooth when you zoom in on them. So I'm just going to make it a degree 3 curve, long story short, and let's just rebuild this to 3 different control points and say, okay. So now I have 3 points, and what I could do here is I could just say like points on, and then I'm showing the points, and I could take one of these and bloop, pop it up, and we could rebuild one of these guys too. We could do a rebuild, and we could do the same thing. Say degree 3, we could say there's going to be 4 points here as well. And we'll just go with that. We pop that over, we could pop that under, we could take this guy and raise it up. And I'm able to do all this because I have the gumball on. That's what gives you the little move gizmo and rotate gizmo. And then we can do the same thing here. Let's just rebuild that. And we'll just go with the same settings that they gave us here. And we'll just, whoops, instead of doing that, let's pick one of the points. Once again, that's points on. Now with all of these, right, I got some crazy shape going on. Obviously this ramp would be a little weird this way, so let's drop that down slightly. And then we're gonna highlight all of them and just do a loft. And just say okay. And then we're gonna click the gumball and set it to like a -1 foot to bring that into a thickness that's down a foot. And actually that's just doing these 2 curves. So Control Z undo that, pick the actual surface, and then do a little gumball action here to extrude that down -1 foot. And if I go to a shaded mode, you can see what's going on here. So we have this pretty crazy looking ramp. And now let's go and put that into Revit. So this is our challenge. So we're going to go back to Grasshopper. And we'll make that bigger. We are going to find a new data container. And let's just double click and say brep, Boolean repetition or something like that. And then we're going to go and set one brep and click on this. Now we have that data. And then we're looking to turn that into something in Revit. And probably could just set that as like a floor or something. I wonder if we can do that just straight out like this. Otherwise, we might have to do like some kind of generic geometry, but we'll try and set that in as a floor. Yeah, it's not gonna work very well. Let's do. There's like if we go to the Revit tab, there's direct shape. Add direct shape seems to be like the most like easy command to do, and it's like add direct shape should work. Throw that in, and then now with this, we should be able to bake that into Revit. So we minimize and we minimize. There it is. Voila. Now it comes in pinned. There's also ways to bring this in with like setting the material and all that. You would just use like a Grasshopper definition that has a material plugin for it. So there's like, if we go back to that real quick, Rhino.Inside, just open up Grasshopper directly. We see it. Where'd it go? This happened last time. It's probably a user error. It's probably me. But let's find out. So let's go back to it. Where's my little window? No idea. McNeil, you're killing me here. Where's it at? Where's my little Grasshopper window? We know it's around here somewhere. There it is. Okay, so you can see that if you have trouble finding it, it's somewhere on your screen. I've never seen it get that small before. It's like one of the later updates around October 29th, 2021, where it's getting a little weird. But anyways, if you go to direct shape, add geometry direct shape, click on that. This gives you name, category, geometry. So you plug in your geometry this way. You should be able to get like your name. If you want your name, you type a // and that's the panel. And you can double click in on the panel and you can type what you want. So you can type like ramp, right? And then you can throw that in as the name data. Category, you could go and double click and say category. And then you hit enter, and then you right click on category. You can pick a different category, right? So you can say like, I want this to graphically show up as like a generic item. And then in Revit, you can set all your, like, you know, when you cut through something, you could say like, yeah, make all my generic items or all my floors, like what I just picked, you know, post shade black. So in section, you know, this Rhino.Inside geometry will still show up graphically how you intend. This here is not going to take the B-rep right now. We could type in the word geometry and convert the B-rep into a geometry and then go in with that, I think. And then, I mean, maybe B-rep will work. I'm still kind of learning some of this stuff. And then we could right click in here and let's just see, like, we'll pick something just to pick it. And I don't know why, I gotta look into exactly why this direct shape's not working, but this is what you would do to get yeah, it's still not working, to get your material right going into Revit correctly. And if I can't bake this, so anyways, that's like one approach that you could look into to get more of your material settings correct. So the point of unpinning this is that you could move it around, right? You could select it. There's like certain things you can't really do to it, like scale. It'd be really nice if that was incorporated to be able to manipulate it a little bit more, right? But you can rotate it, you can move it. If you need to change the scale, you gotta do that in Rhino or in Grasshopper. But it's a great way to make some pretty crazy geometry as well. So that's ramps. That's the tutorial. If you liked it, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to hit the like button. It really helps me out. Definitely been having a lot of fun making the videos, and I hope you guys enjoy watching them. And I'll see you all soon.